Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, now I see people.
Hello. Is that Miss Chris Agee?
Yeah, I thought
Hi.
I'd be here.
Well, it's 3:30. I don't know if.
I'm not sure how to get on the video. Hi, Monica. Can you see me?
Not yet, Chris, but I just sent you a little.
There,
okay.
I can now.
Oh, I thought video, it was recording. Okay.
Now we can see you.
Oh, goody.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Tony.
How are you doing?
Good.
All right. Well, it is 3:30. I don't know if we want to give it a few more moments for a couple of people to join us.
We should get started and then they can jump
They can
in.
hop right in.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Is the music gonna pause? Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Meet the CEO Zoom. Can you guys hear me clearly? Want to make sure. It is so good to see some of your faces. It's good to see. I'm glad you guys have come to meet the CEO. I'm going to do a small introduction. I just want everybody to know before I start that you are being recorded. Just for the volunteers that weren't able to make it, we wanted to be able to record it so that they can see it at a later time. But I am going to pass it off to Jen. Welcome. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you all so much for joining. I just want to offer a soft invitation that if you would like to turn on your camera, we would love to see you. No pressure, but just want to offer that invitation. And before I jump in, I want to introduce our board chair and longtime We Help volunteer, Janet Adams, who has also joined us, and she's going to jump in before I get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. And a special thank you to all of you, not just for coming on today, but for all you do for the free clinic. As you all know, as volunteers, the free clinic over its 50 years has been totally built on the backs of our volunteers, both time and treasure, and most particularly time. And in this odd year, Jen has been with us a year now. She's just had her 1-year anniversary. Many of you have not had the opportunity to see her because you've been working in an unusual situation in We Help, or maybe not even working at all yet. So we thought it would be a great opportunity for you to have a little time to meet Jen, and most importantly, for us to talk some about what our objectives are as we take the free clinic forward, because last year has changed some of what we're going to do forever because of the amount of people that we are serving now. And we're also looking forward to opportunities for you to give us some feedback of what you see, what interests you, what concerns you, so that as we start to move forward out of the worst part of the pandemic, that we are really serving our community in the best possible way. So thank you again for all you do for us, and I'll send it back over to Jen. Oh, look at you, you're sitting in the old We Help, how cute.
I am, the old We Help, yes. So I'm in our client choice pantry, which, as we all know, looks very different today than it did maybe the last time you all were there. We have about 18 people on this Zoom, so I'm very excited that we've got a good number of folks. I'm gonna just share my comments. I want this to be really informal, so please jump in, ask questions as I go, and then, once I conclude, I want to, like Janet said, give you all the opportunity to ask questions, share feedback, and let us know who you are, so that we know a little bit about you too, because I'm just looking forward to getting to know all of you. So like Janet said, I have been here for 1 year, almost exactly, 1 year and 2 weeks. And when I started with the free clinic, I think I got just under 2 full business weeks under my belt before we knew COVID was going to be just, the situation that it has turned out to be. We didn't know what to expect, but we knew it was going to change everything that we do and how we operate and interact with our volunteers And so I have really only known the free clinic in COVID times. And so that is definitely an interesting perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about, what we're looking at as we see a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of vaccines, and moving into a different phase of this whole pandemic. And so we'll talk a little bit about that too. But before I launch in, I want to ask you all a question. So maybe you've heard us talk about this if you've been around the free clinic, maybe not, or maybe because you've been involved with the United Way. But is there anyone who knows what I mean when I talk about the ALICE population? Okay, so the ALICE population is an acronym. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. And it's a term that the United Way came up with in the aftermath of the Great Recession as economists and funders and institutions started tracking the economic recovery. And what they were seeing was this widening gap between folks who maybe had more means at one time, and then were beginning to have less means because the cost of living continued to rise, but wages didn't necessarily keep pace with the increased cost of living all throughout the country. So the United Way took this on and really started studying this population and gathering data in every state and every county and looking at what does the ALICE population really look like? What does it mean to be asset limited, income constrained, employed? This is what we used to call the working poor, right? We just don't call it that anymore. We call it the ALICE population. So if you all had to wager a guess, what percentage of Pinellas County residents do you think were in the ALICE population pre-COVID? You didn't know it was going to be a test, but I'm jumping in with the test, like right out of the gate. But any thoughts? And if you're on staff or the board, don't guess, because I think we talked about this. So I'm going to look to the others to jump in. What percentage pre-COVID do you think were this working poor population in Pinellas? Any guesses or thoughts?
20%.
40, you said 20%?
20%.
20%. Okay. Any other high, low, any other thoughts? Okay. That's a great supposition. It's a pretty high number when you think about it, right? Like 20% of the population being in this asset limited, income constrained, employed. The actual number pre-COVID of folks who were working poor in Pinellas County is 46% pre-COVID. So how much do you think, so when you think about families, right, and how much families need to earn in order to be considered this ALICE population? So first think about, we talk a lot about federal poverty level, like that's kind of the indicator for a lot of capability for families to receive services, right? So you think about a family of four and what the federal poverty level is, and it's $26,500. That's what you need to earn to be considered at that, federal poverty level. The ALICE population, so for ALICE survival, right, meaning in Florida, to be like just on the margins in terms of the ALICE population, the ALICE survival amount of annual income for a family of four is $69,500. That means that a family of four earning $67,000 a year is going to not quite be making it. They maybe can pay their slightly expensive rent or mortgage. They maybe can pay a car payment on an old pre-owned car, which is all good, but they have less than $250 in a savings account. They have little to no long-term savings 401k. They're not prepared for emergencies, and they are one paycheck away from financial crisis. So something like COVID happens, they lose a paycheck, they have no savings, and suddenly families are having to make tough choices like, do I pay my rent or do I buy groceries for my family? Think about that, $69,000 for a family of four. When you think about the average wage in Tampa Bay, it's something like $64,000. So it's a pretty high sum on balance, right? We think, well, that's actually a pretty good amount of money to make, but it doesn't go as far as we think it might go. For some context for that, we've all heard of SNAP benefits, right? So like people being able to access SNAP. In order to access SNAP for a family of four, you have to be making no more than $53,000 a year. So if you're in the ALICE population, you're earning $60,000, you have a family of four, you don't qualify for SNAP and food assistance. So just another point of context there. So all of that is to say, that is where we help, you all, our amazing staff, all come into play. Right? The capability to put food out into the community for these families who otherwise would not be able to access fresh, healthy food are in this growing ALICE population that was high before COVID and now is absolutely through the roof, which is why our numbers in We Help have absolutely exploded to the extent that they have. So how many of you have been around over the last year and have seen the line out in our parking lot around the corner and just kind of either been on the line or have seen how we've operated in the last year? Just show of hands. So you all know firsthand, right? So I don't know, I know you've seen the operation. I'm not sure if you know of the numbers that we're seeing in WeHelp. So I'm just going to share some of these numbers so that we all have that context. So pre-COVID in our client choice pantry where I am sitting, we on a busy day served 170 households per day, about, right? That was a busy day when we were inside in client choice.
Mhm.
Since last March, when we moved outside, on an average day, we serve 350 households. That has kept up until last month, pretty much since last March through last month, an average of 350 households per day. What does that mean in terms of people? Pre-COVID, we served 5,500 to 6,500 individuals per month in WeHelp. We are serving an average of 20,000 individuals per month in WeHelp, every month, month after month. I think in July, we served 23,000, Monica, does that sound right? And then probably hit 23,000 again in December or January.
All services, yes.
Yeah, all service. So really, really high, incredible numbers. So before COVID, the number of households with children we were serving was like 15 to 20%. So a lot of people who are coming to us were seniors, people with grown kids, people without children, singles. The number of households with children we're serving today is 52%. So we are learning that families are making their way directly to us. And we think that's for a number of reasons. One, because of this, Alice population, lost income, loss of employment, COVID, exacerbation we're talking about. Also because of what's happened with schools. When schools shut down and schools went to remote learning, of course, the nutrition and food programs that a lot of families access through schools kind of got turned upside down and became not only inaccessible to many families who are learning remotely, but also was paused for a long time. And the school actually wasn't able to have those programs in place. And so families started making their way directly to food pantries. And that has kept up again over the course of this whole year, consistently through this pandemic. So what does all of that mean? It means that we have had to get really good at purchasing food, for one. We've gotten really good at how to build relationships with food distributors, how to be able to access more food, both with respect to donations and be able to purchase food with some of the grant dollars that we've gotten so that we can serve more and more people. We also had to learn from one day to the next, and this is due to Monica, how to operate very efficiently outside in all of the elements, how to engage volunteers, how to keep our volunteers, our staff, our clients safe. And all of this over the course of the last year has been a really enormous learning curve. So we learned, early on that masks, for example, were the way to go. And so we incorporated the wearing of masks in all of our locations, on all of our properties, and have kept up with that over this last year. Monica and team learned exactly how frequently the forklift needs to go back and forth to make sure we'd have just the right amount of dairy and eggs and cheese and perishables out on the line so that they don't spoil, but they're fresh enough, to give away. I know every month when Monica sends a report, she talks about, okay, we're serving one car every 60 seconds. So there's this really, good, efficient machine now, which you all who have been out on the line are certainly familiar with. But I just want to pause for a second and let it sink in, just the absolute vastness of the number of individuals and families that we've been serving. And just to sort of get your reaction to that, those of you who have been there with us or have just seen it from afar, and kind of get your reaction or your thoughts.
Good job. It's amazing that so many people can get that food. Thank you, Monica, and all the food people.
Hey, Monica and Susan, yay.
Jennifer, the numbers seem right to my experience. 350 a day, 20,000 individuals, and over half with children. I think that might even be low.
Yeah.
But you've got the numbers, so it seems to be right to me.
Yeah, and those are averages, right? So certainly there's some days or months where we're higher. yeah, it's been really staggering. And, you all are thanking Monica and her team, which is absolutely correct. But honestly, and Janet said this at the beginning, and it's not an overstatement, that we cannot do the work that we do without our volunteers. And those of you who have been out here know that, we've got 1 or 2, maybe 3 staff members, depending on, the day out on the line, and anywhere from 10 to 12 volunteers. If you can only imagine, if we didn't have committed volunteers stepping up, and showing up every day, we couldn't serve 350, households a day. There's no way. And at the beginning of COVID, many of our volunteers who are over the age of 65 or who have underlying conditions, it really put us in we were in a bit of a fearful state because, of course, we asked our volunteers who were in those populations to stay safe at home. And that, we would let you know when it was safe to come back to the free clinic. And thank you, people who fall in that category, you all complied, you stayed safe at home. Well, we figured out how to put the right protocols in place to keep everybody safe. And we thought, how are we going to serve all of these people with so few volunteers? In the first 3 months of COVID, we actually onboarded 150 new volunteers, which was an absolute surprise to us. And so, Jennifer, Monica, and our team were able to bring new people in and get them out there so we could really make sure that we didn't have to pause our services while so many of our wonderful volunteers were having to stay home. And so again, we have only been able to do what we do because of our new volunteers, our existing volunteers, and all of us working together. So we're super appreciative about that. I want to talk a little bit about the other services that we have offered and continue to offer in WeHelp, because it's not just food, although that's the biggest volume of what we do, but we also offer water bill support, support for getting IDs, birth certificates, other critical documentation, connecting people to support for utilities and rent, and then client advocacy. And I am a little bit nervous to talk about water bill support, for example, on this Zoom, because our resident expert is right here with us. Mary Lou Bordeaux, who's also our board secretary, is not only, she is here twice a week working directly with clients to connect them to that water bill support. And so she's on the phone with clients, she's helping them get their water bills paid. Mary Lou, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I know that we are doing far more support for clients than we were pre-COVID. So we are spending $10,000 a month, is that right? More than that? More than that, yeah. So $10,000 to $15,000 a month, and offering clients, we used to offer, well, Mary Lou, why don't you give us a quick synopsis of how we've grown there?
Well, we got a special senior grant this year, which enabled us to increase our assistance from $100 a family to $150 for seniors, which we at that time decided would be 55 and up. We got $15,000, and I went through the last $150 this morning, just in the last, say, 8-9 weeks.
Wow. And between that and, just other grants, we're able to really try, and our own, just commitment through donations to keeping up with that service. We really wanted to take that worry away from the individuals we serve. One of the things that I was made aware of here at the free clinic is that when families get their utilities cut off, so their lights turned off, it's an issue, but it's not like we're going to possibly remove your children from your care issue, versus if families get their water shut off, they face the potential of having their children removed from their care. And so it puts families in a really tough position where they're having to, again, face tough choices like, do I buy groceries? Do I pay my water bill? Do I pay my utility bill? And so we're really grateful to be able to step into that gap and try to ease the burden for those families, both for food, water, and other support. We also have a client advocacy program. Many of you know Lisette, who used to have work out of her office inside the building, and since the advent of COVID, still is in her office on the phone, but also in and out of the door, working with walk-ups and people who come to us directly to help connect folks to other services. So as much as the free clinic does, we certainly don't do everything. We think it's really important that we're able to connect people to other services in the community, but we don't just want to offer a list of names and a phone number. We want to make sure that where we are sending people, they have a person they can talk to at that organization, that we understand the individual's situation and can make a warm connection so that we're sending them to the right place, we're advocating for their services, and we're getting them to the right type of support that they need. And Lisette does everything from, connecting people who are in domestic violence situations, or, you know, on the sort of more extreme end, or needs medical care, maybe connecting them to our health center or to other services in the community, to getting them connected with other utility bill support. We were working very closely with our local legal aid organizations to help people get connected to rental assistance and eviction mitigation, because during COVID, as I know we all know, food has been a huge issue, as has the potential of losing housing because of the moratorium on evictions ending and people suddenly owing months worth of back rent that they hadn't been able to pay. And so we are working with local organizations to connect people to those organizations to support that, because we don't offer that rental assistance. And so it's a very closely networked web of services, and we do that really warm connection for clients. And so that's a little bit of an unsung part of We Help, but it's a really important piece of what we do. I'll pause there for a moment. I do want to share a little bit about what we're doing in our other programs. So those of you, who are interested in our health center, in our residential programs, kind of get a bird's eye view of what we're doing there. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what we see in the coming months, sort of for the future of We Help. But just want to take a break and get any reactions, answer questions before I keep going. Again, I promised this would be interactive.
I was going to
So
say,
I'm just going to
questions, don't be shy.
put pressure on you all, so I'm not the one talking the whole time.
Monica got a standing ovation last night at the end of the afternoon session when he closed up.
I did absolutely no work. And then I came outside like, do you guys need help? When everything
Hey, Monica. Good girl.
Monica deserves a standing ovation probably every day. So I'm
Yeah.
glad, I'm pleased to hear that she got one. I don't know what she did, but I'm sure whatever it was, she deserved it, because she deserved it.
Absolutely not.
Sure.
You guys are awesome. I come out, everything is completely done. You guys work very hard. Susan and team are always outside working diligently, so we do appreciate it.
I just like to say that I find that during this time, the fact that we have gotten even more and more fresh and more produce, I find absolutely amazing in this kind of crisis. Because at this point, you would have thought that we would have fallen back to anything you could possibly get. And that it's so fresh is really, I think, a real statement to the work that everybody's been doing to get the right food for the table.
Thank you for mentioning that, Janet. That's like such a good prompt, because one of the things I usually share and fail to is I'll share this. So I was looking at these numbers just yesterday. So 2 years ago, about 56% of the food that we distributed out of our food bank to our other partners. So we also, in addition to distributing here to ourselves at We Help, we also deliver food to between 50 and 60 partners throughout Pinellas County, most of them in St. Petersburg and south of Ulmerton, but certainly throughout the county, right? So that's anywhere from other food pantries based in churches to assisted living facilities, senior centers, shelters, all kinds of organizations that distribute food to their own populations. We send food to them. So a couple of years ago, about 56% of all the food we sent out was fresh produce, fresh protein, fresh dairy. We are now above 70% of all the food we distribute being fresh, and much of it being produce. I think last month, 88% of the food that we distributed was all fresh. And so we're very, as Janet said, we're very proud of that. We really sort of doubled down on that commitment during COVID, especially to commit to fresh, healthy food, because we know how critical it is and how important food is in keeping up people's health and immunity. We didn't want to contribute to health issues or exacerbate them. Just having calories isn't enough. It's really important to try to get that good, healthy food in your system and to support families in that way. And so as we go forward, we're really trying to think about how do we keep up with demand, keep up with numbers, and also keep the quality of our food high. So we'll talk a little bit more of that in a moment. I want to share a bit about what we've been seeing in our health center and in our residential programs. So in our health center, in the early days of COVID, we had to transition briefly to just a telehealth model and serving our existing patients, because many of our providers, many of you know, our health center functions also almost entirely off of volunteer providers who deliver healthcare services as volunteers at no cost to our clients. And many of them are over the age of 65 or in special populations, so needed to stay safe at home. So as a result of that, we decided to keep all of our existing patients connected with providers. They could call in, get prescription support, consultation, just keep sort of those telehealth appointments if they had a particular concern. And while we figured out how can we safely reopen, our actual health center, bring people back in and keep everybody safe. So it took us about 90 days. We reopened our doors with a bunch of COVID safe protocols, including full PPE for staff and providers, a limited number of people in the building, a slightly limited schedule. And we continued to keep up with telehealth. So we are still doing one room for telehealth where providers can be in that room and Zoom or talk to patients who are off site. And then we have the rest of our location open for actual face-to-face appointments. And I was reading so Deloitte published a study not long ago about the top 10 innovations in healthcare. And I was reading that list and I was very proud to see that the free clinic currently offers 3 of those innovations, which is kind of cool. So telehealth is one of them. We also are doing more point of care diagnostics. So as a result of a grant, we can now do labs on site at the health center to a certain extent. So we don't have to send our labs out the door and to our partner Baycare. We can get critical information from our patients right then and there to help our physicians be able to make diagnoses or create a care plan right there on the spot. So that's been a huge enhancement. And another really exciting innovation that the Deloitte article cited that we implemented this year is 3D devices. So in our dental center, which we did a grand opening for in February of 2020, and then promptly had to shut down for about 90 days again because of COVID. When we reopened, we went back to seeing patients on site. And as the result of a generous donor, we're also able to implement a digital denture lab, which allows us to print dentures on a 3D printer at about half the cost and in about half the time. We are still working out the kinks. I understand that our dental clinic manager has a lot of beakers and burners and torches and things as she works out the system, which I can't even imagine what that means, but I just know that's what's happening over there while we're figuring out how to use this new system. But we have provided a set of partial dentures, I believe, already for somebody, and are working to get appointments in for people to receive these dentures at no cost to them. It's a lot less messy, it's a lot faster, and it's ultimately lower cost. So that's a really exciting sort of cutting edge enhancement that we've been able to implement here during COVID while we're just trying to figure out how to keep up with patients and serve the community. We also recently partnered with the American Heart Association. We have implemented a food pharmacy. We're excited about that because we feel like that links food as medicine, the importance of food and nutrition and what we do in We Help and the food bank to our health clinic. And so we just opened that up, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And what that means is if a patient is seeing a provider, they either have diabetes, another chronic disease, they need a heart healthy diet, that provider can write a prescription for one of the specialized bags in our food pharmacy. They can walk out with the bag of food that's specific to their specialized diet, helps them get on the right track with nutrition and saves them that grocery bill. And so it's really offsetting cost as well as supporting that nutrition. So we're really excited about that. We're continuing to operate our drug assistance program, which last year provided $2 million in prescription drug support for medications that people otherwise would not have been able to access because they're too expensive. I know we've all probably seen in the news the rising cost of insulin and how critically expensive that is. Our drug assistance program helps to defray costs for drugs like that. And we also have our diabetes education management program. We have a great model where a healthy living coach works one-on-one with patients with diabetes to help them adapt their lifestyle and do all sorts of things to lower their A1C and improve their outcomes there. And so lots of different programs going on in the health center that we have adapted as a result of COVID, but we are still going strong and moving forward there and are very happy that many of our providers have been able to come back and see patients on site. And then finally, we have our residential programs. So we have our men's residence and our women's residence, both of which are transitional housing for men and women experiencing homelessness who are also recovering from substance use. And in those programs, as you can imagine, lots of concerns at the beginning of COVID around how do we keep our existing residents safe and not contribute to the spread of COVID in that congregate living environment. And so we sort of locked down for several months to make sure we really limited in and out. Residents who had been reliant on 12-step programs and going to AA meetings suddenly didn't have those supports available because that was not happening anymore. A lot of AA and NA meetings across the country transitioned to Zoom. Our residents did that until Zoom, AA, and NA started getting hacked. I don't know if you all have been on any Zoom meetings that have gotten hacked. We've had one here at the free clinic and it was pretty aggressive. So you can only imagine that happening when people are trying to be in a supportive, confidential environment and they're getting hacked. And so that quickly, dissipated and that wasn't happening anymore. So we transitioned to outdoor under our tent here in We Help in off hours, socially distanced, masked AA and NA meetings for our residents. In our men's residence, we had a couple of clients who had gotten jobs in a call center. And when they were required to go work from home, they were in crisis because they thought, how do I do this? I don't have a computer. I don't really have a home. I'm living in this transitional living environment. Talk to their case manager. We set them up with an at-home office at our men's residence for them to be able to work from home and keep their job, and used one of our storage rooms and converted it to an office. And so and I know that like women in our women's residence during lockdown were sewing masks and they were bagging dog food for We Help. And so there were just all kinds of creative things that our staff was doing to keep our men and women engaged during this lockdown period, to try to reduce stress and really keep them focused on their recovery. And also helping to support our other programs, which we know, did great for them. I'll share one quick story of a woman who recently left our women's residence, and then again, want to open it up to hear from you all. But I think she left 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, but she came to us with really severe out of control diabetes. She was very sick. She had been dealing with addiction for many, many years. So when she came to us, she not only was able to begin to benefit from just the living environment, the case management, the mental and behavioral health support at the women's residence, but we also got her connected to our health center's diabetes education management program. And through the work with our healthy living coach, she completely transformed her health, completely got her health on track, stayed sober, and 9 months later was able to move out a completely changed person, totally healthy, with sustained recovery, rebuilt relationships, and importantly, her physical health, where it needed to be for her to have long-term success in permanent housing. So we're very, very happy, that's just one example of the many success stories that we have with our men and women who stay with us for as long as they need to, and then are able to transition out into healthy permanent living situations. The one other thing we've done during COVID that I'll share, and then I promise I will stop because I do want to hear from you, is that we have also added mental and behavioral health services, both in our health center and our women's residence. So we now have a therapist providing one-on-one counseling for patients in the health center 1 day a week for now, but it's no cost. And then we're also doing groups in our women's residence. We know how important mental health is to all of us, for health in general. We know what a critical need it is in the community, and we wanted to be sure to play a role in offering that support. And so we found a way to do that and are offering that through 2 of our programs. And now I'll pause. So we've had a lot going on, and we have a lot on the horizon. Any questions about all of that before I just talk very briefly about what we're excited about going forward, particularly in We Help?
Jennifer, you mentioned mental health 1 day a week at the clinic. That's a one-on-one. And then a group at the women's residence.
That's right.
Once a week, and at the men's residence.
Yeah, so our men's,
Wonderful.
yeah, and that will happen a little bit later. We're currently doing groups in women's, and then men's will add a little bit down the line.
Wonderful.
I was wondering how many people are in each of these men's and women's health resident or residences?
So our COVID capacity in our women's residence is 30 women, where we typically could have 50 because we have double occupancy. And so we lowered that to 30 so we could have single occupancy for all of our women, as well as a wing for isolation should somebody become ill with COVID. And so we've lowered that capacity there. And then in our men's residence, again, for single occupancy, we have the capacity for 14 men, where usually it's 28. But we've actually had some flux in our residential program. So many of you are aware that we had a family residence program as well, working specifically with the Juvenile Welfare Board on serving families who needed a place to stay for 30 to 60 days. Our facility for our family residence is 100 years old. And when we went in about a year ago to repair some plumbing and electrical, and when you start to tinker with a 100-year-old building, it turns out you learn about all the other things that are wrong with that building. And so then it turned out we needed to fix this and fix this and fix that. And oh, by the way, we have structural issues and lots of other concerns. So we got to the point where we needed to move our families out of there so we could safely house them elsewhere. Because our capacity in our men's residence was lower due to COVID, we swapped those two residences temporarily. Our men moved into our family residence buildings, some of the buildings that were in better condition, and our families moved to our men's residence while we figured out our longer term strategy. And as we talked with the Juvenile Welfare Board and other partners in the community, what we learned is that 7 years ago, when we took on the family residence program, there was no other organization in the community that had the facility or the readiness to do this program. What we found today is that there are a couple of other community partners out there where short-term emergency shelter is really their wheelhouse. And given our facilities challenges, we worked with Juvenile Welfare Board to transition this program to St. Vincent de Paul Cares, which had the capacity to take on our families and is doing housing, short-term and emergency housing, particularly for families in a way that we weren't able to do. And so we felt really good about finding that solution, transitioning that program to another partner, and closing out that program on our side. And so as a result of that, our men's residence capacity went way down. And now we're moving back into our actual men's residence facility where we can start bringing men back in and bring that capacity back up. So in the middle of all of this upheaval with COVID, we also had this huge residential issue and transition there, but we were really grateful to be able to collaborate with another community partner to transition a program, to another organization and partner in that way, because we felt like, let's focus on what we do best, what our core competencies are, and support other organizations in doing the same.
What are your primary donors, or who, or?
So
How does
right
that work?
now, about 75% of our support comes from individual donors and about 25% from a mix of grants. Among our individual supporters, we have a really good diversity of support in terms of the level of support or size of gifts, if you will. So while much of our support comes from individuals, it's a good mix of folks who give sort of on the higher end, as well as a high volume of folks who give, at lower dollar levels, which has been really great for us during COVID, where we've had the opportunity and have seen that we have acquired many new donors. So that's been very exciting. We've been able to bring new people, into our family of donors, have them learn about our services and choose us as a place where they, want to contribute. But in general, it's 75-25 individuals and grants. And some of that individual also is events, about 13% is events, but our event model is mostly driven off of individual gifts and sponsorships as opposed to the corporate sponsorship model.
I know early on when we were out on the line giving food, it was often big pallets of Walmart food or Publix food. Do they donate very often?
So we have, and Monica may want to jump in to talk more about this specifically, but we partner with Feeding Tampa Bay as a recipient of both food directly, and also they broker a series of contracts for us to be able to pick up and receive food from grocery stores like Walmart, like Publix. And so we still do that. And I don't know exactly what the mix is of the exact stores, but we have 35 different grocery contracts through Feeding Tampa Bay.
So our drivers do grocery store recovery and they go and pick up a lot of that food. Once we got the purchasing abilities, started going to partners, but a lot of it, we have food that comes from Sam's Club, we have food that comes from Walmart, from Publix, from just an array of grocery stores we do.
So Julie, when Jen answered your question, Jen was speaking about the dollars that come in from individual donors versus the grocery and the hard groceries coming in that you're speaking about, which is in excess of the dollars.
That's right.
Oh, keep going, Julie, keep going.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about what we see ahead. And I know, there are probably other questions about what kinds of partnerships or things that we're doing, and Crock-Pot's showing up at We Help. And so we could talk more about all of that too. But so going forward, one of the things that we're very, very mindful of is that for many of us, we see a light at the end of the tunnel for COVID. As vaccines are in wider circulation, we hope, right now we're looking at what the metric of by the end of May, every adult who wants a vaccine should be able to get one. So we're crossing our fingers for that. We're very hopeful. We know that that means for a lot of folks, the recovery, the capability to get out of their houses, to go back to work perhaps, or to look for that job, or to improve their economic situation, and to just feel better, in general. So we're all looking forward to that. But we're also very, very mindful of is that for the communities that we serve, that recovery, that light at the end of the tunnel is not necessarily there. We are looking at a potential 5-year economic recovery for individuals who are on the lower income side, on that lower ALICE, scale. So it's not going to be this light at the end of the tunnel for many of the folks we serve. They are still going to be in need of our food services, in need of healthcare, in need of mental health support, housing support, substance use support, probably more so than ever, especially as people begin to move past the immediate healthcare crisis and think about many of the things that have been deferred, like mental health or healthcare, primary care, these types of things. So again, for the communities we serve, there really isn't yet a light at the end of the tunnel. We are looking at high food insecurity for the foreseeable future. And one of our big concerns is how do we continue to keep up with the pace and the demand of knowing we need to serve people at a higher rate than what we were doing pre-COVID, and still be able to incorporate more choice, still be able to raise the dollars to support those services as COVID relief dollars go away, because that has been something that has really sustained us. Julie, your question about funding was a good one. And what I didn't share is that, yes, it's 25% grant, 75% individuals now, but during COVID, we were able to get more grant support as a result of those COVID relief dollars out there. So for example, when the CARES Act, the first iteration of the CARES Act passed, and the funding for food relief filtered down through local communities, we did receive a great grant to purchase a lot of food and to get food out into the community. That was a 90-day horizon. So we had 90 days to purchase food, to serve families, and expend all of those dollars by the end of December. We've been able to find some grant funding to bridge that, but it is all incredibly time limited. So by this summer, by early fall, most of all of those COVID relief dollars are going to be gone. This new CARES Act that has passed, and I don't think it's called CARES, it's something else, so forgive me, but of course there's been, federal legislation that was just passed. It's going to offer a lot of relief to families, to individuals. It's unclear what the food relief is going to look like for organizations. So we know that will have an impact and will certainly be incredibly helpful to the communities we serve, but it is short term and it does not solve all of those bigger picture problems. So even with families with an infusion of stimulus or some cash, yes, families will maybe be able to pay their back rent or be able to pay their bills or catch up, but they're still going to be in that tough position when it's all said and done of having to make choices like, well, what do I do now going forward? Can I really afford groceries? Can I afford produce? Can I still feed my family and help keep them healthy? Can I afford housing and groceries? So still making those tough choices, because if we think about 46% of Pinellas County being in that ALICE population pre-COVID, that's not going to change as we head into this post-COVID sphere, even with some additional support coming from the federal government to help families. And so we expect demand for our food programs for We Help to stay high for the foreseeable future. And we want to be sure that we can work hard to fund that need and all of the other needs across our community, and also incorporate more choice, more access to clients, and be more flexible. So what that looks like in We Help, and many of you have maybe heard this in side conversations, is we're really interested in pursuing this technology that functions like Instacart, but for food pantries. And so clients will be able to go onto an app or go online and to order what they might get from us, and then to be able to pick that up. And that functions, that's helpful in two ways. One, it restores some of that client choice that we lost when we had to move outside and put groceries straight into people's trunks that were pre-packed. But it also keeps things COVID safe. So as we continue to kind of navigate that, there's some still, limited contact. And it also creates more access and more efficiency, right? Because we can set up kiosks in actual neighborhoods, or we can deliver to people, or they can pick up. There's a lot of different ways that we can be flexible by incorporating that use of technology. Right now, it is what I would call in the dream stage, in that we are dreaming about what could be. Monica has done a ton of research. We are really trying to get our IT infrastructure shored up so that we can support a great program like that. But we are in the dream stage of it and very excited about moving that into reality over the next few months as we continue that exploration. Another thing on the horizon for WeHelp is, as you know, we've been doing some mobile distributions and pop-up pantries. And what that has done is allowed us to get into communities where food is needed, where folks can't always get to WeHelp and they don't have a food pantry nearby. We have been pretty ad hoc about that, and we don't necessarily have a more thoughtful plan, but we know that the takeaway from having done the mobile distributions and the pop-up pantries is we want to be able to have the capability to be flexible and to provide access where it is needed and to be mobile. So how can we get into communities to get food to these communities on a neighborhood level where there otherwise isn't access? So we're in the process of purchasing a new 26-foot truck in our food bank funded by private support that's going to help give us that flexibility. Having another large truck, CDL type truck out on the street will allow us to outfit that truck to be a mobile produce distribution vehicle or to go do more pickups around the state. So just having one more truck in rotation is going to increase our flexibility because we know we need to be mobile and to create more access. We also recently hired a new health education manager, which we're very excited about. And her focus is also largely on nutrition. And she and Monica are going to be partnering on how to pair up what we're doing with the distribution of fresh, healthy food in WeHelp with providing age-appropriate education, health education around food through various different delivery mechanisms. So one example of that is many of you have heard of our new partnership with the Early Learning Coalition, where we are now piloting delivery of fresh produce every Friday to 3 childcare sites in Pinellas County, providing families who otherwise would not have access to this fresh produce with a bag of produce every week. And it's also going to employees who are not high wage earners and could also use that support. So right now we're piloting the dropping off of the food. And what we want to do is add in recipe cards to help families, give them ideas for how to prepare the food that's in that bag. I am no cook. I don't know if you all are like masters in the kitchen, but I don't know how to necessarily chop up. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I have many talents, not one of them, but I can't chop up a head of cauliflower, or I get a wonderful cauliflower from WeHelp. I'm not sure that I know how to prepare it. I think a lot of families are in the same boat. Or like a mango, somebody gave an example of, we give away mangoes. Who knows how to peel a mango? I don't know how to peel a mango. It's got a tough skin. Do I have the right knife? And so little things like that, even though we are providing the food, there may still be barriers to people consuming that food and enjoying that food, sitting together around a table to have a meal. So we want to work to eliminate those barriers, not just by providing the food, but providing some education on how to prepare it. What are some recipe ideas? Why is it great for you to eat? Great story about a mango that a 4-year-old can learn, and then they're excited about eating fruit. So all of these kinds of cascading things that we're going to work on with our health education manager to sort of complement what we're doing in WeHelp, which we're really excited about. And that sort of is my final, what's on the horizon, what's happening now, are these specialized partnerships. So partnerships like with the Early Learning Coalition, which we decided to get into because they told us there was a need. They said, 0 to 5 centers really aren't being served with food, whereas schools are. Can you all step into that gap? And we were excited to do it. We're piloting it. We expect it to expand. In the same way, we're looking at other partnerships like this. We're working with Johns Hopkins All Children's to create food pantries in schools throughout Pinellas County, working right now with Gibbs High School and installing a pantry there. We've got other specialized partnerships that we're working on, again, to really try to meet our partners and our community where they are, all with the premise of creating access to healthy, fresh food. Also, we're going to be outside for a long time. So in case anybody wanted to ask about that, I'll just really fast focus on that. We are not planning on moving back inside anytime soon. We expect it to be many months, and then at some point we'll have a hybrid and hopefully some technology involved there with the app and smart choice, but we are going to be outside for a little while. So in case you were hoping to be on this Zoom and have me say, great, in May we're moving back inside, welcome back in. I just want to manage those expectations. That's not going to happen.
Just get a lot of fans.
Fans, yes, we have a number of them. We will buy more for the summer. Monica got really good at putting together fans. I saw her assembling any number of them last spring in our lobby. So among her many talents is assembling industrial sized fans.
I know Susan told you guys we're going to have a Mr. Tent and a mandatory 15-minute break for
Right.
volunteers during the summer. So we are mitigating the heat for you guys. I know it gets super hot outside. I am so sorry. I have to hop off, everyone, but I think you should do a round robin and introduce yourselves and say how long you have been working for the free clinic. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye, Monica.
Bye.
Hi.
Well, Jennifer, awesome presentation. I feel honored to be working with such an organization. Just to make a couple comments, I'm thrilled about the mental health opportunity that's headed that way. I also do volunteer work with the neighborly organization and do Meals on Wheels. Obviously, that's changed to some degree. One of the pieces that I liked about that is we could actually go in the home. We could evaluate, you know, the condition of the people. We could evaluate if there wasn't anything, you know, bad going on in the home. They do have a social services group with the neighborly so that if there was an issue, I could report that. And they would be very good about going in there to look at that. When I first came on with We Help over 2.5 years ago, what I loved about the pantry is talking to the people as they came in. Some of them probably hadn't had a conversation with anybody in days, maybe weeks. Sort of getting to know that person a little bit if they were so inclined. And again, when we went out, interesting, when we went outside, when I was working, I would get to at least talk to somebody that was driving the car. You know, say, oh, here are your eggs. You might want them up front. Oh, do you have a dog or a cat? So I would get to have a little bit of a conversation. Of course, now it's in the trunk. So the conversations have shortened. But for me, I mean, that's about who I am. And it's about the dynamic that I feel is also very important with everything else that the group offers. So personally, I'm happy to see the mental health being addressed.
Thank you so much. And tell us your name so that we all know.
Leslie McFarland.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for those comments. And I do, you know, we acknowledge that moving outside and operating in the way that we do, that connection piece got lost. And it is a big part of what we do, connecting with the community, connecting with others. And so, you know, finding ways to bring that back while we stay safe is going to be so important. I will say that even in the short interactions that folks have had through the windows of their vehicles with our volunteers, we have gotten so much feedback about, we love coming here. We are so grateful. You all are the nicest, the friendliest. Yep. We feel respected when we come. And I'm sure if you all follow us on Facebook, we posted about this, but at one point, and maybe it was one of you, a volunteer popped a trunk and there was a thank you note taped to the inside of it where somebody had said, thank you to the people, you know, who put the food in the trunk. We're so grateful, or something to that effect. So even though the connection isn't as deep as I know it was when people were coming in and spending more time, the connection is still felt.
Yeah, great.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's do intros. I support Monica's suggestion to do that. And if it's okay with you, can I just call on you as I see you either on the list on the side, or and then maybe you could tell us your name, how long you've been volunteering, and just anything else you might like to share. So we'll start with Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Mccoy. I've been volunteering there for over 7 years. I started working with Roy upstairs in the non-air conditioned summer of 2013 and sweated off a lot of weight. I now work Mondays and Wednesday afternoons. Monday afternoon, I'll be distributing people out in the tent. And on Wednesday afternoon, Aaron gives me jobs to do, like packaging up toilet paper and tampons and dog food and stuff like that. I have continually been impressed with the free clinic, and that's why I continue to come and help out. It is a premier organization, as I consider other food pantry type organizations. Jennifer, I'm real glad you're here, and to see that Shayna Bend has been promoted to COO is a terrific job for her. I mean, it's going to be great. So that's me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Jeff White.
Hi, thanks for introducing me. Tony's a hard act to follow after 7 years. I've been doing 7 weeks, 7 days.
Welcome.
And so I'm just soaking up everything that's happening here. It's fascinating. I've never been around giving out food before. And I'm curious how you did it before the drive-through. I never paid attention. So, and are we going back to whatever that is?
Well, so it looks, if you see my Zoom background here, this is what we help Food Pantry used to look like. It was set up like a grocery store, and clients would come in through our front door. They would maybe have a bit of a wait in our lobby, but it was set up like a lobby, not a warehouse, and would have the opportunity to move through the store and to shop as though they were in a grocery store, and to not pay anything. And Janet and Mary Lou and those of you who were around, during those days and during client choice, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that or that experience.
It was a great thing. I think probably Tony applied that too, but I was the a vegetable lady, and would spend time both sorting vegetables, because sometimes after Thanksgiving, Publix would bring in like 8 billion pounds of sweet potatoes and things like that, and getting them in a way that was something that people could grab. And as a couple of you alluded to, having the wonderful opportunity to get to know people while they were coming through, and also maybe encourage them to try something that they hadn't tried before. It's a wonderful thing to be able to have that interaction. And I understand we are going to need to be more efficient because of the volume of people that we pull through, but I'm sorry you didn't have the opportunity to go shopping in our store with some people, because it was really wonderful.
It was a really good experience for the people. Every day I had at least one client who would walk in with a grocery cart and say, "Oh my gosh, this is just like shopping at Winn-Dixie or Publix. It's just like I'm out grocery shopping." They really enjoyed it. Now, to give you a little history, 7 years ago, we had bags of food for people. We determined what they wanted. And if they had two children or 3 children or 4, we would give them 1 bag, 2 bags, or 3 bags. And sometimes they didn't like the stuff, so it sat around on our porch, or people traded it off or sold it, whatever. So to go to the client choice pantry was a major improvement, and our numbers increased dramatically. Shayna and Monica can tell you that. But we're stuck now outside, and we're getting even more numbers, and they're happier.
And the way that we're hoping to bridge that, again, is through this app and through technology. So we're really wanting to bring choice back, but we know that we can't serve as many people as need serving by going back to this exact client choice model. A year from now, we may be able to see a hybrid, and also when it's safe to totally be back inside and around, any number of people at any given time, because there would be as many as, 100 people in our lobby and in the pantry at any given time. And so we're not quite there yet, but I could foresee a year or so from now, perhaps we do have, this set up again, and also are doing, the app and allowing for that. And so I think it's just going to be kind of stepping back into it. But I think where we get to that choice piece is by exploring the technological approach. Brent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I do. Hello, I'm Brent. I became aware of the St. Petersburg Free Clinic probably 2 years ago, and my wife started volunteering there as a nurse. And then I've been working in the tent since, I don't know, spring or summer or something. I remember it being hot, so I guess it was sometime in the summer. I haven't been going to the gym in a long time, so I really like, the chance to move boxes around. It's a good workout. I've been upstairs in the We Help packing boxes on occasion. And I don't know if any of you are up there, but those people work way too hard. They need to like calm down. It's not a competition. Tell them that. Everyone up there is like Lucy and Ethel. Sometimes I've seen people like throwing things and stuff in their shirts just because they can't keep up. So tell them to calm down. And because I'm a emailer and email better than talk, I'm going to send you a notice about how to do an Instacart startup, because I did one once. And the main primary thing is don't use technology.
Oh boy. Okay. Great.
And I'm gonna question your emphasis on fresh produce, because it just seems wrong unless people don't have freezers. I mean, I'm very cheap and I hate to waste food, so most of my produce is frozen, and I'm wondering why fresh, or maybe that's just what stores donate because it's going bad.
I mean, it's a good point. You know, it's a combination of that stores are trying to move, you know, what their undesirable produce or fruit is, and then we're able to distribute that out. It's not rotten, but it's, you know, not maybe at its peak either. And so we can move that, but it's also through other partnerships like Farm Share and other distributors where produce is their focus, where the fresh produce is their focus. So we've been able to develop those relationships and to get that product out into the community. I think for us, you know, the imperative is healthy food. I totally appreciate your point though about frozen produce and being able to keep that for longer, especially when we've had a lot of food available to be able to give that out. We want to be sure, you know, that food is being able to, you know, to go to good use. We know that people are picking up for their neighbors, for their extended family, for people who don't have transportation to necessarily get to us. But your point is well taken about, you know, exploring frozen as well. And I think that's a really good point. I want to talk to you more about the technology thing. I know you've mentioned that to me in the past about your history with that. So we'll talk more.
And I think we talk about produce a lot, but there's also a lot of dairy and meat that's coming out also. So it's that's an important part of what people are getting also.
Right.
Well, and Jen, I know you talked about how to cut a mango, which I don't know how to do either, by the way. So it's not easy. But there was some discussion about, you know, what's the best way to freeze these vegetables, because we did have a surplus. And so early on, when we were giving out tons and tons of produce, there were a couple of key volunteers on the line in the drive-through who were talking about, okay, this is the best way to freeze spinach, or this is the best way to, you know. So in addition to the knowledge that we're, you know, trying to share about how to cook and how to prepare, also there are discussions about how to store.
And candidly, it is a little bit of a learning curve for us because we are increasing. I think for us, it's how do we make sure that we have food that is contributing to people's health, not just giving them calories. And we are early-ish in that journey. And so I think that it is a continuous exploration of how do we do that optimally so that we are not being wasteful. We are supporting people's capability to store or consume that food. So that we really get that maximum result. We're in pretty close touch with the CEO of the Santa Barbara Food Bank, who also happens to be a children's book author and is really big. He really has, I don't know if he's pioneered it, but he has led a pretty successful effort in that part of the country around the distribution of fresh, healthy food. And it's, you know, what he calls food literacy, health education around healthy food prep, and how to support people in that whole journey. Also to minimize waste. And so he has been a great resource as we sort of been on this journey of how to put more fresh food into the community, but then how to address the other barriers. Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kathy Rome. I think I've been at the free clinic for maybe 9 years. Mostly or always as an interviewer, which Jeff, there was the system we had was people came in first and saw an interviewer and we talked to the clients. That was the first part of their journey. And I absolutely loved it. I think all the interviewers really loved their job. because it was the contact with the clients, and we all have stories. And a lot of times, I think almost every single time I was there, somebody would break down, and it's just heartbreaking, some of the things that happened to them in their lives. But we don't have that right now. So I've been packing food upstairs recently, and anxious to go back to get on the line now that I've been vaccinated. I did have a question, Jennifer, which is, have we thought about ways for volunteers to be involved in the new projects that we have, like with the pop-up pantries or the health education projects? Or I know it wouldn't be the volume of volunteers, but I'm wondering if you have a way for us to get involved with that.
The short answer is yes. And I will let Jennifer expand on that a little bit.
Okay.
I am so much always nagging everybody about how can we plug volunteers in more? How can we plug them in more? So every time we have a new initiative, there'll be a new way to plug folks in. I will say, and you've heard it here first, we have put a pause on our upstairs packing for a couple weeks, but we are going to start again packing next week on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I'll be sending out a communication about that tomorrow. But one of the things that I love about the team that I work with here at the Free Clinic is that volunteers are always on the agenda. So anytime we talk about a new initiative or project, you talk about communications, you talk about funding, you talk about staffing, and volunteers is on that list. So, and sometimes it's at the top of the list because we can't do anything without the elbow grease, if you will, of this group. And so, yes, always looking to see how we can engage our volunteers to support our work. And next week, we're going to start some of that very competitive, intense upstairs packing that Brent likes so much.
And I also want to thank Jennifer Silva. You've been amazing this year. The number of volunteers you brought in is stunning. So,
Thank you, Kathy.
Ditto, Jennifer.
It's been a pleasure and a real honor to be a part of it. So I feel very, very lucky.
Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, and first, I hope she's still on. I can't see now. I'd like to welcome back Elisa, who was here, I forget when, but quite a while ago. And then I saw her picture and she's coming back with her and 2 little girls in tow. Darling, welcome. I have volunteered at the Free Clinic for over 20 years. And like Kathy, I too interviewed, and just hearing about the people and talking, I just loved interviewing. It was just very special. And when I started interviewing, we didn't only do the food and IDs and birth certificates, but we'd have to call for rent, we'd have to call for water, we'd have to call, you'd be on the phone trying to get in touch with the city or whoever for hours, but we didn't have as many people, but we did have quite a few. And then as far as the food, we had to go back as interviewers and bag the food. So as you can tell, it's come a long, long way. It's evolved in just to this amazing agency that I am so proud to be a part of. And I have been bagging bread. I was upstairs for a while, and now I've been out at the food warehouse, but I look forward to getting downtown sometime and getting with the people again. I miss that. And everybody who works there is just, you guys are amazing. And I thank you for carrying this on.
Thank you so much. And we'll introduce the staff too, once our volunteers have had the chance to introduce themselves, because we have some new old faces and some faces that we may not all know. So that came out wrong. In any case, we'll introduce the staff in a minute. So Richard and Marilyn.
Well, this has been really wonderful. I'm Marilyn, and it's my husband, Richard Hoffman, and we have been volunteering in the pantry area for about 3 years. But when COVID came, we pretty much stopped. And we both, I think, really miss it a lot. It was a really important part of our week and our desire to give back to the community and actually live in a more Christian way. And we just felt like it was very important and valuable to us. We got more out of it than we gave. I know that, as most volunteers do. We are part-time down here, so but we're actually going to be a little more part-time than we used to be. We're going to probably be here 6 months instead of the usual 4. And so I think we're gonna try, now that we're vaccinated, and I think we're ready to come back. So I think we'll probably talk with Susan. And but this has been a real eye-opener, and it's been unimaginable what you've all done. It's been such a monumental time, but you've really come through, and that's wonderful. Thank you.
And I'd like to see Monica put a fan together.
Remarkable. She is a woman of many talents.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Alan?
She was a couple kids.
And you're on mute. Just so, yep.
Hi. Well, thank you for the presentation, Jennifer. It was a lot of good information. I'm relatively new at this. I've been volunteering now for about 3 months in the food pantry. I usually work the USDA section, and so like Brett, I'm getting my weekly workout. I've really enjoyed it. I'm impressed with the organization. It's nice to see how appreciative the people that come through really are. It's can be heartbreaking sometimes, but the fact that so many people are so grateful just really makes it all worthwhile. So I've really enjoyed it, and I'd like to actually start giving some more time. So hopefully I can work with Jennifer Silva and find some other opportunities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really very, very wonderful to have this group include, volunteers who've been here 20 years and 7 days. It's awesome to see that span. So thank you.
Well, I'd also like to add that your staff, Susan, Ben, Monica, they're all terrific people. And the way that they come out and they interact with the volunteers to get to know us. And, we don't feel like we're just there to hand out stuff. I mean, we really feel like we're part of a team.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Mary Lou?
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Bordeaux, and I've been volunteering for, I think, close to 15 years in various roles, all within We Help for the most part. I've done some interviewing, done some packing, done some decorating at the women's residence, done some work on the board and on special events. But my focus has been primarily with the utility bills. Most water assistance, but we do have another special medical program that helps people with their electric bill when they've had a really critical medical situation that prevents them from working. I still interact with them on the phone, but I do miss the clients in person and very much miss the volunteers. It is so fun to sit in the back office and hear somebody who hasn't been there in a while come in, and everyone's like, "Oh, wow, where have you been? We missed you. We're so glad you're back." So it'll be really fun when everybody's back.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Hall. I've been volunteering for about a year. So I came in maybe 2 weeks after you did, Jen. So I didn't get to see it when it was all inside. It was pretty much starting outside when I started. And I used to be a board member as well as work for Meals on Wheels. So I thought maybe it was going to be something similar to that. And boy, was I wrong. So very different. But I have really enjoyed it. I primarily have worked, at least up until recently, inside, just concerned about crawling around in people's back seats when we first got started. And so I did a lot of the things that, were getting things ready to go outside. And then of recent, now that we're keeping things in the trunk, I'm more outside. But I'm really enjoying it, and I've been telling friends about it. So hopefully getting more volunteers that way.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Vanessa, are you with us still?
I'm here. If you can hear me, I'm Vanessa Richardson. I don't exactly know how long I've been volunteering. I think it's been like well, I started around Thanksgiving, I would say. I'm erratic because I split my time between New York and Florida. My brother had a baby about a year ago, and I thought I wanted to spend more time down here with them, and thought I would get involved in the community to make sure she grew up in a place that believed in equity and inclusion and dignity. And so have been trying to get involved, but like I'm one of those people in the upstairs that get a little caught up in things. I like I like it. I think it's fun, and Roy's playlist is extremely good. But I mean, I'm a boring corporate lawyer, so to the extent you all have needs for people who are OCD and very detail oriented and good with paperwork, I'm 100% your girl. So let me know if there's other ways I can help. I'm around, especially if they are not like these sort of every week commitments.
You started in October, late October, Vanessa.
There you go. Thanks, Jennifer.
I have a computer that told me.
Well, thank you. And I thought I saw Mark and Mary, but I'm not sure if they're still with us. I want to see if they're on the phone. Maybe they had to leave. Did I miss any volunteers? I know Janet had the opportunity to introduce herself. I'd love for our staff to briefly share who they are. You all have heard from me a whole lot today already. So, I'm Jen Yeagley. Sherry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sherry Wysocki. I've been at the free clinic since December of 2017. So in some respects, I'm sort of an old timer, at least among this group of staff. And I got to see the pantry before it was the client choice pantry, and they packed the bags of food. And then I saw the transformation to the client choice pantry. And this past year, I've seen all of the transformation that's happened because of COVID. And because I am the director of donor engagement, this year has been one that has been both humbling and inspiring. I can't tell you how generous this community is. All of you people are donating your time, and people throughout the community have kept us afloat and helped us buy food and helped us do all of the things that we've been able to do this year. And it has just been an amazing, amazing experience.
Sharing. Aliza, as Chris mentioned, is I think our newest team member on this call. We are thrilled to have her. She is in week 4. I believe you've crossed your first month, and this is a return home to her. Aliza was with us. We keep saying, oh, a little while ago, 15 years ago. Actually, it's been, what, about 20 years? So welcome back.
Thank you. So I'm excited to be back, as Jen mentioned, as Chief Development Officer. And hi, Chris Agee, it's so good to see your face. You look exactly the same. You look exactly the same. But talk about seeing We Help and just the free clinic in a different light. Parts of the building still look the same, but at least we have things that are in place, and the roof's not going to leak on us. Not today, anyway. I know, but it is wonderful to see how the people continue to feel the impact of this place, and how the community feels about the St. Petersburg Free Clinic. That hasn't changed. When I left here the first time, I went on to work for some other nonprofits, including Eckerd College, and Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. And then I went home to Knoxville, Tennessee. That was my first hometown to be a CEO. And then realized how much we missed St. Pete. So it's a thrill to be back. And any way that I can leverage past relationships and connections, I'm doing so. I'm going through my mental Rolodex of the Rotary Club and all of these other organizations of people that I'm going through our database and calling on. And so it's exciting to be back. And thank you to these volunteers, to all of you. I mean, you make this place work. So thanks so much.
I know you all know Jennifer, but I'd love for her to introduce herself in any case.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. You all know me. But what a pleasure it has been to be a part of this organization. And I've a career in nonprofit. I've done everything from running a spotlight in an emergency at American Stage to planting seagrass at MacDill Air Force Base. But I love this job the best, and that's because of you guys. During this crisis, I have had many friends with years of experience in professional positions have the rug pulled out from under them. They've lost jobs. And not only did I have a job, and a job where, our leadership guaranteed we would be okay, but I had a job that was making a difference, and I got to spend time with people like you. And this is all Alan's fault because you got it started, and you were, and then Sherry. But it's emotional because I think we're all here for reasons beyond a paycheck at the free clinic, clearly. But I am grateful to all of you. I am so proud to be a part of this organization, and I get so much joy from working with you guys all the time. So thank you for all that you're doing and for just being such an inspiration and putting up with all of my scatterbrained emails that I send all the time.
Jennifer, sorry, I have to run. Thank you for everything you've done and all the staff and especially all the volunteers. I'm really getting to know people and it's great. So,
thank you. We're thrilled to have you. Look forward to meeting you face to face, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
And we'll let Jaya introduce herself and then we'll wrap up to make sure to be respectful of everyone's time. But Jaya, as our board likes to say, keeps all of the trains running and much, much more. So.
Hi, everybody. I am Jaya Foddenham. I am the assistant to Jen Yeagley. I love being at this organization. My first nonprofit is going to be 2 years next month. I'm absolutely in awe of what we do as a nonprofit, and we couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
So as we just wrap up, I want to be sure everybody knows, as you come back or as you're here, please don't hesitate to stop by, to pop in, to say hello to me. You will often see my door closed. It's not because I am unfriendly and don't want to talk to people. It's because I spend so much of my time on Zoom in various meetings and connecting with all kinds of folks that way. So if my door is shut, feel free to knock or pop in. If my door is open, I do try to get out to the parking lot, mingle around as I can. But please don't hesitate if we've not met face to face or haven't had the chance to connect, or just to say hi as you're back and in the building. Would love to connect with you in person, and certainly just want to reiterate how grateful we are. I've had a career in nonprofit leadership, and a lot of organizations say we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers, and sometimes that feels like a little bit of a throwaway. But here it is absolutely unequivocally accurate. We quite literally cannot do what we do without you in any of our programs. So we are so grateful to you all for serving the community and ensuring that we can do what we do. So thank you for everything. I look forward to staying connected. Please don't hesitate, like I said, to stop by, to reach out. And thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us this afternoon. We're very appreciative of that.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much. Take good care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.